Hello everybody, welcome back to Games of Platinums. Today we're going to be talking about how to platinum the hit indie hack and slash anime game known as Samurai Maiden. Without further ado, let's get started. A little synopsis to know about the game. The game isn't too difficult to platinum. I'd say it's around a 3 out of 10, but it is going to take a good amount of grinding to get this game done and finished. I'd say around 17 in-game hours is how long it took me. You can estimate that to how long it'll personally take you. If this guide ends up being helpful for you, please leave a like or subscribe, as it would help us out a lot, and honestly, it would honestly make our day. With that being said, let's go on to the unmissable and easy trophies. There is a handful amount of easy, unmissable trophies that you can get just by playing and beating the game. They normally consist of using the ninja skills that correspond to each character for the first time, using all specific characters' ninjutsus for the first time, using Devoted Heart with every character once, the reason why you bought the game, let's be real honest here. Using all the items that IO can use to help the player consist of using a timed bomb, a normal bomb, a decoy, a mine, and the recovery barrel. These items can all be found in regular chests during the early stages of the game, alongside beating the 3 character bosses for the first time. And of course, beating the game on normal difficulty. These are pretty self-explanatory. All you would really have to do is play the game in whatever way you want. The only quirk I would say is that you have to find one of each item that can be used with IO for the items trophies, but it shouldn't be too complicated to acquire. Now that we got those out of the way, it's time for the more convoluted trophies that will require a bit more of time to get. Let's get the more aggravating trophies out of the way, starting with beating the game on demonic difficulty. For this trophy, it's really best to have majority of the skills unlocked, which, when you attempt to do this, you most likely will. Which the most important ones that you should really have is each character's individual secret art and the torso blow counter. The difficulty isn't too hard. Enemies do hit a bit harder, but really the only difference compared to the other main difficulties is that enemies have more health. As for the main strategies, using the secret arts is really what's going to help you tremendously throughout the entire run of the demonic difficulty. Basically what happens is that you use 2 skill gauges to use one big AoE attack that really would do a lot of damage to all surrounding enemies depending on which character that you're using. IO releases fire spiral blades, Kagane uses lightning strikes, and Komimi just uses a giant ice tornado, which in my personal opinion is the best one because it really is really freaking good. Then you have the torso blow counter, which if you parry any opponent correctly and counter them via pressing triangle, you will do a high amount of tremendous damage to a good amount of surrounding enemies, which really helps out a lot. It also builds up the skill gauge tremendously. You could use and just spam the secret arts over and over again after you use the counter. It's really great, really well. It does amazing damage. It's just really all you really need. You could even destroy bosses in a matter of seconds. It's relatively insane. Like with a little bit of skill, you can really make the game for you a whole lot easier, and you really don't have to worry much. It's kind of insane. As of weapons, I personally use the Tsuruhime, as it provides 28 base attack stat and 450 HP, but really the good thing about it is that it's able to increase my heavy attacks and build up skill gauge by 2. But this is one of the last weapons that you'll get to unlock ever in the game just by playing the game on the general difficulties. So using the Mountain Bird or the default weapon shouldn't be too bad. As long as you level him up to the max level, the damage around the board is roughly the same. And just to get the moves out of the way, I'm going to quickly explain the Devoted Heart status effects for each corresponding character. IO's Devoted Heart gives a flame sword along with a side of damage reduction and stun resistance, so you can just stand there and tank some attacks. It doesn't really help that much in harder difficulties, but it can work. It'll do its job. Hagane's effect gives a lightning sword alongside a better dodge mechanic that you can spam more thoroughly. A small little detail that you can use with Hagane's effect is that the lightning sword does cause paralysis to most all enemies, so if you really get lucky, you have a higher chance to stun the opponent using paralysis because of the lightning sword, which is really neat. It's all RNG though, but it can be useful. And lastly, Komimi's Devoted Heart, which when activated constantly heals you for the remainder of the Devoted Heart, which is the best thing that you really want for demonic difficulty. Alongside, the Ice Blade has a chance to give freeze to enemies, which when enemies have that, enemies take more damage, so it'll help a lot with destroying practically any enemy, including bosses as well. Besides the final boss, I don't remember being able to use freeze on him, but it works on everybody else, so it's really great. It really goes to show why Komimi all around the board is just the best character to use. So there's that. I do want to mention that personally for me, what was very difficult and annoying was the final boss. It can be very annoying and tedious with the amount of enemies that can spawn, from the big samurai bosses to the elemental trolls, which can be really annoying. Really, the strategy is to really take your time with the boss, because the more damage you do, the more enemies will spawn. The right plan of action is to do enough damage to the boss. Once all the enemies spawn in, you deal with them, and then after you deal with them, you go back to rinsing and repeating that process until you win. It is going to be annoying either way because you have to deal with heavy, high healthing enemies alongside the boss, who is also doing moves that can instantly one-shot you, to drain your health away, and it's very annoying. It's going to take a little bit of time for that one, but relatively everything else should be very easy. But once you got that done, that's it. You've beaten demonic mode and you never have to think about that ever again. Let's talk about getting S ranks across all stages and difficulties. This is pretty self-explanatory and pretty easy to get. It's just the most time consuming alongside the collectibles, but we'll get to that later on. What you have to focus on is reaching gold medals for all 3 of the categories that the game offers. The good thing about it is that the game allows you to complete medals one at a time if you're having too much trouble focusing on all 3. You can focus on one category at a time to make it more sensible for you. So, for time, just speedrunning the stage. It's pretty simple, not out of the world. Just blast through the stage, ignore some enemies, and keep going. For the currency of the game, Inga, I recommend changing all your side characters' weapons to their starter weapons, as when you level up each of their weapons to level 3, you gain an Inga buff, which will make it easier to get the gold medals across the game. Just take your time on each stage, make sure you kill most enemies so that you can acquire the most currency, and really get that junk out of the way. While you're doing that as well, you will actually be able to complete the 3rd category that needs to be gold medaled, which is enemies defeated. So while you're grinding for the currency and you're killing a bunch of enemies, you'll really be doing 2 birds with 1 stone, so it's really good for that. And that's pretty much it. You just have to really focus on that across all difficulties. It's just going to take a while because you have to play the game again from the beginning 3 times again. So really what you should do is that when you're playing the game again on the different difficulties, trying to get the difficulty trophies, also try and focus a little bit on trying to get the medals as well. I do want to mention that there are a couple stages or 3 stages that are pretty annoying to get gold medals on, and it's the final stages of each character's bubble pockets. All it is just one boss fight that consists of having enemies around them, but the problem is that the requirements for these stages for some reason is just incredibly high, and not to mention that if you do enough damage to the little mini boss, the enemies around them will despawn and they'll respawn again, so you're gonna miss out on tons of kills and tons of currency. So it's really annoying. That's gonna be another annoying one to really deal with, because you have to really take it slow to really try and get those gold medals. But other than that, that's pretty much it that you have to really worry about. On to the next thing. Next up, the collectibles. There are a total of 217 collectibles that have to be found and acquired at all stages on all difficulties in the game. It's the same thing as the S ranks, just find all the collectibles in each room. I will try and have a full video of all the locations of all the stages on each difficulty, but all around they aren't too hard to find. Just look around in each room and in every corner and you will spot them pretty easily. But I will try to get a video out so that it is easier and more faster and quicker for you guys. And so while you're trying to get the other trophies, like getting all the S ranks or demonic done, you should also try and get those chests so you don't have to think about those ever again. Next up is to enhance all the weapons for all characters. First, you must unlock all the weapons for each individual character. Let's start with Tsumugi. The Demon Slayer is the default weapon you get at the start of the game. The Mountain Bird is unlocked after beating Chapter 9 on normal. The Imperial Blade is unlocked after beating Chapter 16 on normal. The Conqueror is unlocked after beating Chapter 25 on normal. The Journey Blade is unlocked after beating Chapter 1 on hard mode. And finally, the Tsuruhime is unlocked after beating Chapter 16 on hard mode. Next, for the other additional characters. For all three of the girls, they only have 2 weapon unlocks and are required roughly the same for each one of them. For their first weapons is unlocked after beating each character's individual second bubble pocket, which is unlocked after getting each of their affection gauge to 30%. Their second weapon is unlocked after beating each character's 4th bubble pocket, which is unlocked for having their affection gauge up to 70%. You're going to need a total of 1,280 Inga to fully level up a weapon from 1 to 30 for Sumuri, and 277,000 for the rest of the other girls. With a little simple math, in total you're going to need around 2,430,000 currency of money to fully level up every single weapon in the game. The best stage to grind any amount of Inga is to do chapter 14 on any difficulty. Eventually you will get it done and it'll be a cinch. And finally, unlocking all memories for all 3 characters. For this you have to complete each character's full affection gauge and beat each character's bubble pockets. So the best method to do is that when you're playing the game normally, all you really have to do to raise a specific character's affection gauge is to just have them out next to you and you just have to kill enemies. You don't have to use them at all, you can just have them sitting there. All you have to do is just kill enemies. You'll see a little heart gauge go up every single time you do it, and that's it, that's the affection gauge going up. Once you beat all the bubble pockets, you'll complete the little friendship character arc and you'll be done with that and you'll have that trophy. And hopefully, with all that being done, you will finally have achieved the Samurai Maiden Platinum. That's all I have to say, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this guide. Hopefully you found it very useful. It took a while to freaking make this. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If not, tell me why you hated it. And good luck, you're going to need it. And I'll see you guys again in a month.